This episode of the Dysregulated podcast features discussion of events relating to suicidal ideation, self-harm and substance abuse. This episode may be triggering for some listeners and features a content warning. If you or someone you care about needs support, please visit www.blackdog.org.au or www.beyondblue.org for more information and helpful resources. If you reside in Australia, you can call Lifeline on 131114 or Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636. For listeners outside of Australia, please visit www.findahelpline.com. G'day everybody, my name is Elliot Waters and you're listening to the show that is inspired by lived experience. That's right, this is the Dysregulated podcast. Today's episode is the 5th edition of the Discharge paper series, where we go back and have a look at what doctors and psychiatrists were thinking upon my presentation to the emergency department during some of my most difficult moments. But before we get into that, if you are enjoying the show, feel free to like, subscribe, give us a great rating and share it around with your mates. And you can follow the show on Instagram at the dysregulated.podcast, or you can follow me at elliot.t.waters. So today's discharge papers are very, very recent. In fact, they're my most recent. So we're going back to the 8th of March 2023. But before we do that, I want to take you back even further. Now, who remembers, hands up, who remembers the first discharge papers episode? I'm hoping everyone has their hand up. You may also remember that it was coupled with My Journal 4. It's a great episode and I highly recommend that everyone go take a listen if you haven't listened to it already. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is that you might remember in that episode, it is basically a tribute to this particular psychiatrist up at the Mater Hospital. And you'll never believe it, when I was at the Mater a couple of weeks ago, I had this amazing psychiatrist again. And I've got to thank her because her hard work has now got me into the intermediate stay mental health unit at James Fletcher, where I'm staying at the moment. So how good's that? So that's a bit of context of the story. I saw the psychiatrist again. She actually remembered me and said, "How's your caffeine intake going?" And I said, "Not very good. I'm still having heaps of it." And I disappointed her. But the main thing is she got the wheels turning and now we're getting the help that we so desperately needed. All right, without any further ado, let's get into the discharge papers from just a few weeks ago. And the discharge papers go something like this. 8th of March 2023, discharge summary. Okay. James Fletcher, Mater Mental Health Service. This is confidential patient information. Too right it bloody is. Tell you what, there is no podcast on all the internet that goes deeper than this one. I challenge you to find me another podcast where the host literally talks through their discharge papers. I just don't think anyone else is doing what we are doing here on the Dysregulated podcast. It is surely the best podcast on the internet. Anyway, we already know that's the truth. Let's continue. Okay, let's look at the triage nurse notes first. Patient voluntarily admitted after being referred by the New South Wales Mental Health Line by a friend who had concerns over increasing suicidal ideation. Patient was transferred by police vehicle. Ooh, I'll go into that a little bit more detail in a future episode. Patient states that he had been increasingly overwhelmed recently. Difficult to ascertain what his particular stresses have been, apart from him saying that it's all in his head. States that he had been feeling frustrated due to experiencing uncertainty around different diagnoses and treatments and a lack of efficacy from the same. We're trying a lot of things and we're just not getting anywhere. States that he had a recent admission to the Maitland Private Hospital, but he's feeling a sense of abandonment. Geez, that comes up a lot. Very BPD, abandonment. He's feeling a sense of abandonment after they have not been in touch with him for some weeks. I'm still feeling that way. I don't know what went wrong. Also had a discussion about admission to the intermediate stay mental health unit, which you may remember I am currently at. So there you go. Spoiled the story a little bit there, but we got there. However, this seems to be going nowhere and he's feeling a sense of abandonment from this also. I just had to hold on. We were getting there. Anyway, seeking help but feels as though nothing is working. States he does not want to die, but doesn't want to live like this anymore. and thus has been thinking of taking an overdose. Oh, geez. Thank goodness I didn't do that. All right. So that's what the nurse said. Let's have a look at what the psychiatrist said. Now, this is addressed to my GP. Dear doctor, thank you for your ongoing care of Mr. Elliot Waters. I am very thankful. Get ready for this. A lovely 32-year-old male who presented to the Psychiatric Emergency Care Centre with intrusive thoughts of suicide. Now, if you listen to the first episode of the Discharge papers, which again was the same psychiatrist, she also said I was a lovely male back then too. So, pretty cool. Anyway, moving right along, he was admitted to the Psychiatric Emergency Care Centre beds for 2 nights to facilitate transfer to ongoing care in the intermediate stay mental health units, which I am now in, which is great. During his voluntary admission, he remained on level 4 OBS, whatever that means, and was settled, pleasant and polite and engaging as well, showing good insight into his mental health and the capacity to reflect. Yes, heaps of insight and lots of reflection. You could call it rumination. It's not as good as it sounds. Elliot's goals for admission in IJMU, that's the Intermediate Stay Mental Health Unit, a diagnostic clarification in light of multiple diagnoses, and Elliot's perception that he is too complicated and thus undesirable for health professionals to try and understand and accurately diagnose and support with further psychological intervention, in particular regarding his emotional dysregulation, there's that word again, dysregulation, distress tolerance and self-critical nature. Elliot resonates with his diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, but feels that there may be more to this picture. Elliot feels his medications are currently reasonable and that there have been recent changes with his GP, including commencement of clomipramine approximately 3 months ago and then lamotrigine 7 weeks ago. He notes benefit is likely occurring and felt initial improvement. However, the relationship breakdown approximately 1 month ago clouds his ability to somewhat assess this. And that is true. I don't care how strong the psychiatric medications are, they cannot medicate against the pain of a breakup. Ugh. Okay. He has had multiple previous presentations to health services, admissions, and trialled many medications and psychological therapies to varying degrees of success. His diagnoses include attention deficit hyperactive disorder, borderline personality disorder, social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar affective disorder 2, and high-functioning autism. See relevant discharge summaries and A1 for details. He's currently treated with clomipramine 200 milligrams, lamotrigine 200 milligrams, and quetiapine 100 milligrams, and we have not changed these during admission. Elliot presented to hospital on this occasion in the context of a relationship breakdown and, more acutely, invalidation from services leading to overwhelming thoughts and mental images of suicide and stabbing himself. Elliot notes prior to the relationship breakdown, a very important relationship for Elliot, yes, I thought she was the one. Anyway, things were going well with his mental health. However, following this, there has been a dramatic decline thanks to this stupid breakup. What is it even worth? A relationship's worth it. Seriously, someone tell me this. Anyway, where was I? However, following this, the breakup, there has been a dramatic decline in Elliot's mental state, which Elliot proposes is primarily due to his borderline personality disorder, but is also noting an increase in symptoms of his other diagnoses, which he finds extremely distressing. I really had a good handle on these things, and then this breakup come along and knocked me for 6, and it was very distressing because all of a sudden everything was falling apart, or at least that's what it felt like, and that no one was giving me the help that I really needed. Okay, just prior to admission, Elliot had attempted to reach out to services for admission, Maitland Private Hospital and the Intermediate Stay Mental Health Unit, who had declined due to bed pressure. So there were not enough beds to put me in. This led to perceived rejection, invalidation, and intense thoughts and mental images of self-harm and suicide, which on brief exploration in the Psychiatric Emergency Centre, I suspect may have elements of obsessions associated with OCD as well as borderline personality-related cognitions and perhaps warrants further exploration. I agree with that. Who remembers my episode, the BPD, OCD, depression, what do they call it? Model. Model, that was it. The BPD, OCD, depression model. Anyway, this is very much what I just said then, is very much connected to my theory as far as that model goes. So, again, I would go back and listen to that episode because it is a beauty and it explains pretty well how I think BPD and OCD team up to really bring me down and make me very depressed. Okay, Elliot also experiences ego dystonic, distressing thoughts and images of death, which I also suspect may be obsessions, but again, I believe warrants further exploration. There was no cross-sectional evidence of major mood disorder nor psychosis during this current presentation. And that's true. I wasn't so much depressed. I was more frustrated that no one was giving me the help that I thought I really needed. I tried to go back to Maitland Private. They didn't want to know about me. I tried to go to IJMU, which I'm now in, but it appeared at this point they didn't want to know about me. So, I'm a pretty complex case. There's a lot of moving parts. But I really, really want to get better. I really do. But I'm also acutely aware that I need help. I really need help. I cannot do this on my own. And for quite a while now, I have been begging anybody, whether it's a doctor or services or a psychologist, anyone, to give me a helping hand. And the reason that I ended up in the mental health ward on this particular occasion was because I thought everyone had given up on me and that was it. That was it. This was all too much to bear. No one's going to help me. I certainly can't get out of this myself. We're screwed. Thank goodness for the psychiatrist up at the Mater Hospital. All right. Where was I? Impression. Current crisis presentation of borderline personality disorder in context of psychosocial stresses, background of other mental illness diagnoses that are also likely contributing to current presentation, and further exploration is needed and optimization of therapy and medication regimen. So this is the plan. Transfer to the intermediate stay mental health unit for ongoing care. Tick. Medications on transfer as per medication chart. Tick. We're on the same medications. We've actually added a few. Anyway, that's a future episode. Attempted to contact sister, but she was not available. She would have been at work because she's a nurse. Many thanks. There we go. Thank you, doctor. So no changes to medications while I was there, although that was discussed with me. And I'll just tell you, right, I don't know if you can hear that, but it started to rain. Ooh, this is cozy. I like the rain because it's very melancholic. So it's quite fitting that as I'm doing this episode here in my car, because again, remember when I used to live in Mayfield? Remember that weird student accommodation place I used to talk about? There were like 40 rooms and I was room 32, and I could never record a podcast episode in my room because I always had this feeling that somebody or some people were on the other side of the door listening in to what I was saying. So that basically is social anxiety 101, the fear of negative judgment from others. Well, here at the mental health ward at James Fletcher that I'm at now, it's sort of a similar setup. So I've got my room, I'm bed 18, and people walk past periodically, to get to other sides of the wards or whatever. So I get very, very paranoid that people are listening to me waffle on and making these episodes. So, just like the old days, I'm back in my car recording an episode. And like I said, it's just started raining. There's lightning. I'm trying to set the mood here. It is amazing. So yeah, it's raining. There's lightning. The storm's rolled through. Very melancholic. I love it. I love it. Anyway, let's finish this off. Okay, what's it say? So changes to existing medications discussed, but not at that time. Discharge medication list with action plan given to patient/carer. That is me. Okay, the community team, this is the New South Wales Hunter New England Health community team, has been notified of discharge. Advice to patient. The first 28 days following discharge from a mental health inpatient unit or hospital is recognised as a period of elevated service need and risk. 24-hour mental health line, Mental Health Contact Centre for New South Wales, 1800 011 511. Hospital emergency departments also provide mental health triage and access to services. in life-threatening situations, call 000 for immediate help. So there you go. That is the latest round of discharge papers from my time at the Mater Hospital, which just predated me going into ISMU, which is great. So if I didn't, look, I was very upset when I went up there. Like, make no mistake, I wasn't putting it on. Like, we were in a really bad way. But part of my motivation to go up there was, if I make enough noise and bang enough walls and make, a big song and dance, maybe someone will finally bloody listen to me and give me the help that I need. So I went up there really pissed off. I remember I was angry against the world. I'm already angry because of this breakup thing. And then the lack of help and support from those that I feel should be offering it, it just made me, I was at my wit's end. But I think that is one of the reasons why everything moved so quickly after this, because I did go up there with a bee in my bonnet and I was banging on walls and I was saying, if I don't get the help that I deserve, we're done, it's over. And it sucks that I had to I was going to say put on that performance, and I wasn't performing. Like, this is legitimately how I felt, but I was acutely aware too that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, as they say. So I went up there and I was determined that one way or another we were getting an outcome. Whether it's a good outcome or not, I didn't care at this point, but we are getting an outcome and that's what's going to happen. So I went up there, I was blowing up, and I think in hindsight it's actually a good thing that I did, because it really got people moving. And now I'm getting the help that I so desperately needed, which is great. Okay, that's it for this episode, the Discharge Papers 5. Another beauty, in my opinion. Like I said, no podcast goes as deep as this one. No way in the world. So thank you for listening. Remember, if you're enjoying the show, like, subscribe, and give us a great rating. I'm almost at 55-star ratings on Spotify. That is so cool. So please give me a 5-star rating if you wish. And share the podcast around with your mates that might benefit as well. All right, thank you everybody. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate it. And I'll see you next time here on the Dysregulated podcast.